So, hello there, and welcome back to another Nights the Movies podcast. I'm Spike Knight, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing If. But just before I do that, I want to quickly say that I have hay fever right now, so if I keep sniffling and if it sounds like I've got a bunged up nose during this podcast, that's because I have, and it's just that time of the year, and I can't help it. So I do apologise, but hopefully this would be a great and fun podcast to listen to and or watch still. So, let's get into it. If. So this is a new film written and directed by John Krasinski, who, if you don't recognise him by name, he's probably best known for playing Jim in the US version of The Office, and he was also starred in the Quiet Place movies as the father to the family in both of those films, alongside his real life wife, who was Emily Blunt. And he also directed both Quiet Place movies that we've had so far. There's a new Quiet Place film coming out. I think it's a Quiet Place spin-off called Quiet Place Day One coming out this summer. But as of now, the two Quiet Place movies we've had so far, he directed both of them. And that's probably what he's best known for directing at the moment. And this is his first film following A Quiet Place Part 2. And it looked like it was a very different film to A Quiet Place Part 2, which is why I was excited to see. I always like when a director does a certain type of film for a period of time and then goes in a completely different direction. It's one of the reasons Spielberg is, up there, one of my favourite directors, because he's always making a different kind of movie. Just when you think he's making one type of movie, he switches it up. And that's what John Krasinski looked like he was doing after making two Quiet Place films. And I thought the trailers to this film looked entertaining. It looked like it was going to provide me with a wonderful time. And sometimes you just want to go to the cinema and have a delightful time. You don't want to be challenged. You don't want to feel like, you don't want to come out the cinema weeping or feeling broken. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love going to cinema and having those feelings coming out the cinema, but also I love going to cinema and just having a good time, and that's what this film looked like it was going to give me. And also, I liked the cast that was ensemble for this film. Not only the on-screen cast, which includes the likes of, what's her name, Kaylee Fleming in the lead role, alongside John Krasinski himself, who plays her father in the film, Fiona Shaw, who was great in Killing Eve, and Ryan Reynolds. They're the on-screen cast, but then you also have got the voice cast in this film, which includes the likes of Steve Carell, Matt Damon, the late Louis Gossett Jr., Awkwafina, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Bradley Cooper, Vince Vaughn, Jon Stewart, George Clooney, Sam Rockwell, Emily Blunt, understandably so, because she's married to the director and one of the stars of the film, Blake Lively, Brad Pitt, and it goes on and on and on. It's probably easier to name who isn't in the voice cast of this movie. The voice cast for this film is insane. With all those stars' names attached to the film, I began to get more excited and more anticipated to see it, and that's exactly why I went to go and see it earlier today. And the Google plot synopsis of the film goes as follows. After discovering she can see everyone's imaginary friends, a girl embarks on a magical adventure to reconnect forgotten ifs with their kids. And the girl who does this is played by Kaylee Fleming in the film. And honestly, I thought this movie was okay. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I had a good time watching this film in the cinema, and it hit me in the feels when it needed to. In fact, there was a couple of moments when I was getting a little teary-eyed, and I don't usually get teary-eyed watching a movie. I don't cry at watching films. I wish I did. I'm not trying to sound manly there. I genuinely wish I got more emotional when I watch movies, but I don't. And yet I was watching this film and I was getting a little teary-eyed in parts, and I was finding it entertaining. I was going along with it. It had some really wonderful sequences, and I love the idea for this movie. I love how it feels original, but it also feels like it's evoking, the likes of Disney Pixar movies that we know and love, such as Inside Out, Up. I mean, the opening sequence of this film is very similar to the opening sequence to Up, the very famous opening sequence to Up, of Married Life, with the Michael Giacchino score going in the background to that, which makes it all that more affecting. And Michael Giacchino did the score to this movie as well, and hearing his score in that opening, I was like, yeah, this feels very similar to Up, and it did sort of hit me in the same way that the opening to Up does as well. And not only do you have the feel of Pixar movies in there, like Inside Out, Up, and a little bit of Toy Story as well, you also get the feeling of... there's a bit the feels of a Muppet movie in there. Like, the Muppets have been replaced by these ifs. But I like that about it. I always like watching a Muppet movie. They always make me smile. I mean, some are much better than others. Muppets Christmas Carol is one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but it's one of the best Christmas movies of all time anyway. And so when I was having this feeling that I was watching a Muppets movie without the Muppets, and that the Muppets were replaced by the ifs, that made me enjoy it more as well. And it has the feel of... It evokes one of my... it is my favourite. It evokes my favourite Tim Burton movie, Big Fish, as well, which I've watched quite a few times now, and every time I watch Big Fish, I mean, hits me in all the right places. And I really loved how this film was reminding me of those other movies that I just mentioned, because it didn't feel like it was stealing ideas off those other movies. It didn't feel like it was lacking in originality, so it was just copying off those movies because it could do. No, it didn't feel like it was copying off those movies at all. It felt like it was almost saying, this film wouldn't exist without those other movies. It wouldn't exist without Muppet movies. It wouldn't exist without Pixar movies. I mean, John Krasinski, in the press for this movie, whilst doing the press stuff for this film, has even marketed this film, has even called it a live-action Pixar movie, and I totally get where it's coming from after seeing the film. And it feels, like I said before, it's almost paying a bit of homage, if you will. I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it homage or homage? You get the point I'm making. It feels like it's paying homage to those films, and I had a wonderful time with it because of that, because it felt like it was evoking those films, and it knew how to do so without making it feel like it was just stealing ideas from those films. And the idea of the ifs, I thought, worked really well, and how the whole idea of imaginary friends was explored throughout the movie. I really liked all that, and the performances. Kaylee Fleming is a delight to watch in the film. I can see her having a bright career, if you will, in the future. Ryan Reynolds didn't feel like he was phoning it in, which he sometimes does when I watch him in a movie. I'm not the biggest fan of Ryan Reynolds, I've got to admit, but I liked him in this film. John Krasinski feels like he's having fun playing this role, and he feels like he's having fun making this movie whilst he's also playing the father figure. Whilst he's also playing the father, not just the father. He's not playing the father figure, he is playing the father. And Fiona Shaw, I mean, she's Fiona Shaw. She's great in the movie. Yeah, there was a lot to really, really like about it, including the Michael Giacchino score, which adds another layer of emotion to the film. I mean, this film is emotional without the musical score, but the musical score makes it that bit more emotional as well. And the Michael Giacchino score, I mean, he is one of the best composers working in the business right now. He really is, because he knows how to capture the feel of a film, and the score is almost it sounds like the score to a silent movie. You know, it's this type of musical score where you could mute the dialogue and sound effects in this film and just play the musical score alongside the movie, and you would know what was going on though, just through the musical score. And I think, Michael Giacchino did an absolutely wonderful job with the musical score to this film. And this film is beaming with a strong heart throughout that you really feel while still watching it. However, that's kind of my big problem with the film. You feel the heart a little too much. This film felt like it leaned more on the emotional side of the story it was telling, rather than the fun side. There were some fun sequences in the film, some joyfully entertaining sequences. For instance, there's a sequence which focuses on the If Blue, voiced by Steve Carell in the film. A little office reunion there between John Krasinski, who directed the film, and Steve Carell. He voices one of the ifs in the movie, and obviously those two on The Office together, so that's nice for Office fans, and I'm an Office fan myself, so anyway, sign off there. But there's a sequence in the film where Steve Carell's if who I think the character's called Blue. They're trying to get main characters, Kaylee Fleming and Ryan Reynolds' characters, are trying to get Blue to reconnect with his kid. And it's a really entertaining sequence in the film. And there's a sequence in the middle of the film when you are introduced to all these ifs. And it's really great to watch. But I wanted more sequences like that, because there are lots of emotional sequences. And sometimes it almost feels like the film is drowning in emotional sequences, in emotional scenes, in scenes that are quite, tough to watch at times, especially if you've lost a parent. And I'll talk about that in more detail a bit later on in this review. But there are a lot of moving scenes, and I think too many emotionally moving scenes, because it does make the film feel mushy. It does make it feel a little mushy and a little emotionally manipulative. I mean, it's not a little emotionally manipulative, it's very emotionally manipulative. It's almost like John Krasinski is behind the camera going, right, in this scene I want you to cry, in this scene I want the audience to smile, in this scene I want the audience to be having fun with what's going on, but in this scene I want them to also understand that this is a very important part of this young girl's life. It feels almost like the film is trying to make us care too much. It does feel like they're forcing the emotion down our throat a little bit. And because the film is focusing so much on the emotional side of what's going on, it loses its balance, and it doesn't quite achieve in being the family classic that it sets out to be. Because the thing is, like I've already said, John Krasinski has called this a live-action Pixar movie, and I can completely see where it's coming from. But it doesn't achieve the heights of a Pixar film, because what the best Pixar films do so well is you have these wildly entertaining sequences, this story which is so inviting and so engaging, but then they also have these really emotional moments, and they balance it so perfectly well. They make it seem seamless, and that's what other great family films do, like Aardman movies, Wallace and Gromit films, Chicken Run. There's the other films from Aardman that I just can't think off the top of my head right now, but that's why Aardman films work so well, in my opinion. That's why the best DreamWorks animation movies, like Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, the How to Train Your Dragon movies, that's why those films work so well, because they balance the wildly entertaining stuff with the emotional stuff. But this film doesn't do that. The wildly entertaining stuff, if I'm being completely honest, and if I wasn't, what's the point of me doing these reviews? If I was being completely honest, the wildly entertaining stuff isn't entertaining enough, and the emotional stuff isn't focused on too much, so it doesn't achieve the height of a Pixar movie or one of the best DreamWorks animation films or an Aardman film, because it's getting bogged down in emotional stuff. I don't understand that there's some really emotional stuff in the film, but there was some really emotional stuff in Pixar movies. Like Inside Out is actually dealing with a lot of ideas which are hard to talk about, but it does it in a way that you don't feel it though, and yet you feel it in this film, and I think too much, and that's why it's not a great family film, in my opinion. Now, it's a good family film, because at the age I'm at now, and I'm clearly not the target demographic of this movie, I enjoyed watching it. I got something out of it, and I do think you'll get something out of it, as I've already said. If you have lost a parent or lost somebody in your life, somebody in your family has passed away, I think if you've experienced the loss of somebody close to you, this film will hit in a particular way. And I think that's why it hit for me, because I have lost somebody. I lost my father 2 years ago now, almost 2 years ago now anyway. And so when I was watching this movie, I was getting teary-eyed in parts, and I think it hit there where it needed to. And I do think there are parts of the film where, if you are at an older age, you will get something out of it. Now, I don't think families, people, I don't think when a family sits down to watch this film, and the people of an older age in the family are going to get a lot out of it, and I do think it's more primarily targeting itself at a younger audience, but I do think a family will get something out of it, and I do think it's a good family film. It's just not a great family film, and I did come out the cinema thinking to myself, what if that was great? See what I did there? I'll see myself out, but no, genuinely, I did think that though. I did think, what if it was great? What if that was a classic? Because it had the ingredients to be, with the voice cast, John Krasinski writing and directing, and the Quiet Place movies worked so well in my opinion. I love those films, and they get better when I rewatch them. I'm going to rewatch them soon actually, because just talking about them a little bit in this review made me want to go back and rewatch them. And with everybody involved, it feels like it had the ingredients, but once it had been baked, and once I'd had a slice of the cake that was the final product, I liked the cake that I ate. I liked watching the film, but I didn't love it, and I wanted to. I wanted to love it, but I'm happy that I just thought it was okay though, because some people have really taken a disliking to it, and I'm not sure why. I didn't think it was fine. In order for me to think a movie was fine, I'd have to say that I didn't feel any emotion whilst watching it, but I did feel emotion whilst watching it. So no, I didn't think it was fine. I thought it was good. I thought it was okay. That's why I keep saying I thought it was okay. One last thing, and this is a nitpicky thing that I'm only really gonna point out probably. It did become a little bit like, oh, whose famous voice is that when you're listening to the voice cast? Like, I recognise Phoebe Waller-Bridge's voice straight away, I recognise Steve Carell's voice straight away, but then some of the other ifs that we meet in the movie, I was like, what voice is that? Who's doing the voice there? Who's doing the voice there? Who's doing the voice there? And it does become a little too distracting, it did take me out of the movie a bit, but that wasn't a huge thing. And I do think in the end, it's a good film about family, about loss, and about how important imaginary friends are and how important our childhood is when we get older, about not letting go of those things which were so close to us in our childhoods. But I also wish it was just more fun, If it was more fun, it could have been great. But it just wasn't. Still, it was okay, and I liked it for what it was. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that it's a, you know what, I'm feeling generous today. I don't know why, but I'm feeling generous, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I'm giving it that rating because I had a good time watching it. I mean, I probably should give it like a 6 out of 10 or 6.5 out of 10, but honestly, it hit me in the feels. And in the end, a film, when you go watch a film in the cinema, when you watch a film on your TV, on streaming, or on DVD or whatever, it should make you feel. A good film should hit you in the feels and should make you entertained. And should entertain you. That's a better way of putting that. And that's what the film did. It hit me in the feels and it kept me entertained. It's got too much heart and it doesn't have enough joy, but it's worth a watch in my opinion. You don't need to rush out to see it, and maybe wait for it to come on streaming. And I don't usually advocate that. I always advocate going to the cinema over watching something on streaming, but streaming does exist, and so I would say it's probably best you wait for this one to come on streaming. But I also don't think that it'll be disappointing if you did that, because you know what? It's not bad. It's a film that explores childhood, it explores the loss of somebody close to you, it explores how the things we have in our childhood, the things we hold so dear to us in our childhood and so important to us, and clearly that's a big thing for me if you just look behind me. So yeah, I really liked how I explored all that. I just think it's not quite a great family-friendly film because it doesn't achieve the height of a Pixar movie. And for a film that John Krasinski, who's the writer and director and star of the film, has labelled a live-action Pixar film, you'd hope it would. But it doesn't. Still, it's okay, and it was entertaining, and emotionally moving to watch. So, I liked it. I just didn't love it. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, If is a 7 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen If, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Maybe you loved the film, or maybe you absolutely detested it. Whatever your thoughts are on If, please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please don't forget to like and subscribe on this podcast, because then you get updated on when new content is released on this channel. And plus, it makes me happier as well. So yes, please don't forget to like and subscribe on this podcast if you enjoyed watching or listening to this. And I look forward to much more content coming in the near future on this channel. And I suppose that's it. So, as I said, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.